Hopefully you are having a great beginning of your new year, um, and I hope you guys had a great Christmas and a great New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Um, Sorry I haven't been posting for a while. During this time off, I've been busy with family, but I haven't picked up any records for about any collection of records for about 2 months. My business been doing pretty good, okay, but I kind of saving my money for a record show coming up, and I bought some record gifts for my daughter. And I didn't get any records for Christmas, so I just kind of told people, hey, you know what, don't bother, you know, just have a great Christmas. I don't want anything. I just, you know, I'll get it later. You know what I mean? So, I just, I love Christmas and everything, but you know, I'd rather have my kids get stuff, and me and my wife don't really get ourselves anything either. We just kind of like, let's just get stuff for the kids so they can have some great time. So that's what we do. We just have a great time with the kids. So for us, that's how we do it here. But I hope that everybody had a great Christmas. But I did get one record. I got one, and I ordered it off of Discogs. And it's the. I'm sorry for the glare. Let me take it out. Let me take it out so you guys can see that. So you can kind of see my computer in the background there. Try to get it to where there's no glare, which is kind of hard. It is a gold stamp promo, which is pretty cool. But it's Macaulay Schenker Group. Perfect Timing. This is a really good album. And I think a underrated band from the 80s and early 90s. That just a lot of people don't really know who this band is. And they did have a hit song with Anytime for one of their albums. But, this is just a great record. I've got their stuff on CD, so just kind of want to show this guys to you. Really cool. Stick that right back in there, and it is just come with the inner sleeve. It's got some staining up here, but not too bad. Look at that hair. I think we all had some hair like that back in the 80s. I most definitely did myself. I used to have really long hair, so but I wanted to do a few things too. I wanted to kind of give a movie review and show some books that I'm starting to read this year. This year, I'm like, man, I got to read some more books because I'm a book lover. I love to read books. I could spend hours and hours in a bookstore. So I think I wanted to show you guys a few things, some books that I've been reading and that I picked up, and my goal is to finish them all this year. And as far as the movie goes, a lot of you know that I'm a big Star Wars fan. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And I recently saw The Last Jedi. And while it was visually amazing, the story lacked a lot. As someone who I've written a lot of poetry, short stories of fantasy and things like that, I found the movie to lack a lot with its central character, which is Rey, which I love. I like The Force Awakens. I really like that movie. It wasn't the best for me. It was because it lacked something in the story. Rey's character in this film has no character progression. So there's no real hero's journey. If you read a lot of literature and mythology, you know about the hero's journey, and you know about the character progression. If you look at Star Wars, was the first Star Wars, A New Hope. When George Lucas wrote that, he read a lot of like mythology and literature, and he took the hero's journey with Luke Skywalker, who was someone who was unsure of himself, wanted to do more with his life, but unsure of himself. He's called to adventure by Obi-Wan Kenobi, gets into his first fight in the Mos Eisley Cantina and gets his rear end handed to him. He heard about the Jedi being a myth in the Clone Wars and things like that. And as he enters Mos Eisley with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he notices Obi-Wan does some mind tricks on some stormtroopers, and Luke didn't know what that was. He was, well, what are you doing? He says, well, the Force has a way with people, with the weak-minded. And so he kind of learns that, and he's learning about the Force and how it works. You see it in Empire Strikes Back. He's learning from Yoda. Yoda tells him exactly what the Force is. It's a connection with everything between him and the tree, the rock. It's a force that requires faith. And if you look at some of the scenes, Yoda tells Luke when he's trying to lift the ship out of the water, the swamp. Yoda says, "Illuminated beings we are, not this crude matter." And as he says that, he touches his arm. And Luke's saying, "I'm not strong enough. I'm not big enough." And Yoda says, "Well, look at me. Judge me by my size." He goes, "Do you judge me by my size?" So Yoda actually lifts the ship out of the water when Luke can't do it. And Luke says, "I don't believe it. It's incredible." And Yoda says, "That's why you fail." So he's failing, but he's learning at the same time. When he goes to meet Vader, I can meet Vader. I've got to meet my friends. I can take him on. He gets his rear end handed to him again. And when he goes to see Yoda in Return of the Jedi, Luke's convinced that he's a Jedi. And Yoda says, "Not yet. There's one more trial for you to do." So that kind of shows that after Empire, he went back to Yoda and got more training. And he came back to finish it. And it kind of leads you to believe that. It's kind of in there a little bit. So he faces his father and realizes he believes there's still good in him. A man who's just committed so many atrocities, who's just the most evil person in existence. Luke believes that no one is truly evil, that there is that hint of good in them, and you can bring that out. Well, that's the hero's journey, their trials, their tribulations. When we see that in Force Awakens, it's actually not there. Rey, you see her in her first fight. She takes on two guys over a droid. She easily beats them. She can speak droid. She can fly the Millennium Falcon. She can fix the Millennium Falcon. She finds Han Solo and all of a sudden believes that she talks to him and says, "Well, I thought the Force and all that was a myth." And all of a sudden, without any training, she's using Jedi mind tricks on First Order stormtroopers. And I'm like, okay, how does she know that you can do that without really knowing you can? In this movie, Luke had Obi-Wan to show him, so where did she learn that from? She beats Kylo Ren in a fight, a trained Sith Padawan who is supposedly really strong with the Force. She beats him. She's never used a lightsaber before. She's never even used the Force before, but she's all of a sudden using it and knows how to use it. In the second film, it's the same thing. So there's no character progression for her. She doesn't come from here to here. She's already up here. She knows everything. Apparently, Luke calls her, if you haven't seen the film, I'm going to give you spoilers right now. Luke calls her a Jedi without training. Everything that Yoda taught Luke is just suddenly thrown out. the sacred Jedi texts are burnt. Uh, it's just thrown away, you know. And they don't explain why Rey is so strong with the Force. They just, oh, she's just strong with the Force. You know, well, who were her parents? You know, what? And it turns out that they're just people who were drunk who would go and treated her for money, and they were alcoholics and took off, left her there. So there's no character progression for her. And then she beats Kylo Ren again. Um, so it's there's just these things that just don't make sense about her character and character progression. So a lot of people call her a Mary Sue because she's good at everything. And yeah, she's good at everything. There's no struggle. There's nothing there, you know. That was my problem with the film. You know, it was very funny, but you know, I find it odd that Luke Skywalker. If you haven't seen the movie, I'm gonna give you some spoilers. More spoilers. Luke takes the sword from the first Force Awakens, his father's sword that he wanted to be like, and he throws it over his shoulder. And I'm like, why would Luke do that to the man he admired and wanted to be like? It didn't make sense. So I think Rian Johnson's a terrible director and a terrible writer. Uh, there's many more people who could have written a better story than that, who understand the idea of the hero's journey, who understands mythology. That's where George Lucas got his ideas from, Greek myth and those mythology stories. He was inspired by those things and understood the hero's journey. Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams do not understand those things. So that's my problem with those films. I do have The Force Awakens, and I do like the film. It's just I think The Last Jedi really dropped the ball on it. You know, it had potential, and then when Rian Johnson came out with this film, just flopped. So that's my movie review. But let me get to the books real quick. A book I'm currently reading that I think you guys might be interested in, that you might like to read, is Notes from the Underground, Dostoevsky. This is a great book. White Knights, The Dream of a Ridiculous Man, and the House of the Dead. So the White Knights is basically a love story, but the first paragraph is the first small paragraph is amazing, and I'll probably read that to you at the end of this because you guys should hear this. Another book that I want to finish this new year is George Orwell's 1984. Great book. From what I understand, I've read parts of it. I've seen the movie, but I'd rather read the book because the books are so much deeper and interesting. This is a book. It's Falling Apart, and it's a very old book. After actually the cover came off, and this book is Robert Heinlein, The Day After Tomorrow. Original title is The Sixth Column. And it's about 6 daring men stage an incredible revolt to free a conquered America. And there it is. And it's falling apart, like I said. The cover is coming off. I found this at a thrift store. And I don't want to tape it, but tape this cover back on. Another book I'm reading is that I'm starting to read is because I read a lot, guys. So is Faust. It's by German Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Goethe, can't pronounce that. But there's a silent movie on this. Really good. It's a really long silent movie. But Faust is about a man who makes a deal with the devil. So something I stole this one. This one I got a long time ago. It's a very old book. It's a hardcover, but a lot of you don't know this, but Iron Maiden's Rime of the Ancient Mariner is based off of the book The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. It's a very great book. Samuel Taylor Coolidge. So if you ever see that, pick it up and read it. That's where I get my literature from Iron Maiden. It was weird when I was a kid. This is kind of rare for me because I do read horror, but not like this. I do have some other books from Edgar Allan Poe, but this is by H.P. Lovecraft, The Call of Cthulhu, and Other Dark Tales. And I'll tell you what, man, this is scary stuff. I mean, I read some of these stories, and yeah, It's pretty weird. Um, I'm a big C.S. Lewis fan. So, um, out of the Silent Planet, C.S. Lewis, of course, King's X is their second or first album first album was named after this book. Out of the Silent Planet, uh, it's about a gentleman who basically goes to another planet. So it's really cool, a really interesting book. It's comes in three parts. That Hideous Strength, this is the other part, and Paralandra, that's that one, and the Screwtape Letters. Now I've had this book for years in a different book, different look, and I lent it to a friend and never got it back. So I do not lend books out. I do not. I've lent things out to other people and I never get them back. So with records and books and movies, cassette tapes, I never lend my stuff out only because chances are I will never see it again, and that's happened so many times to me. So the Screwtape Letters. It's about two demons, an uncle and a nephew demon, conversing by letter. It's really satirical by letter to Wormwood and Screwtape, and Screwtape tells Wormwood, his nephew, how to deal with a certain human being that he's assigned to, and how to keep him away from God and things like that. It's very, very good. The last writer was the writer who basically had a connection with C.S. Lewis. They were best friends. They started a group called the Inklings in Cambridge, in England, where they used to meet at the Eagle and the Child pub. And he actually read excerpts from this book for the first time to his friends, the first time anybody had ever heard it. C.S. Lewis did the same thing with the Chronicles of Narnia. They would share their poetry and things like that. So one of my favorite writers is J.R.R. Tolkien, the Silmarillion. I can't pronounce names. I'm just terrible at it. So Silmarillion. And I also have The Lord of the Rings. Great book. I'm going to try to finish all these this year. This is The Two Towers. And this is The Fellowship of the Ring. This is actually the first one. The Return of the King is the last, so this is kind of backwards. The Two Towers is second, and then this one here. When C.S. Lewis passed away, his grandchildren, I believe, found stories and that he never finished, or that he had finished, never published. So is the Unfinished Tales by J.R.R. Tolkien. Of Nemnor and Middle Earth. So this is really cool. It's a book that I'm going to finish this year too. So that's a lot of reading for me. And this is another book that was, I believe, finished by a relative, a grandson or something, or I believe. You know what, wow, the cover is back upside down, so let me get this out and fix the cover. That's really strange. And it is another Tolkien book, and it's J.R.R. Tolkien, The Children of Húrin. So really cool book. Excited to read this. So I do have I have a ton of books, and I've kind of dedicated myself because to read more. I'm really into reading books, guys. I love reading books. But here, I wanted to share with you guys something from Dostoevsky, and I want to just leave it with you guys. And whenever you're out with someone and you're looking at a nice guy, which I'm often out with my son Joseph, because he's very into astronomy. You know, he's looking at the stars and the moons. He can name all the planets and everything else. So, and he has a telescope that he loves to use and look out at everything. But I just want to share this with you from the White Nights, Dostoevsky, the first night. Um, it says, "It was a marvelous night, the sort of night one only experiences when one is young. The sky was so bright, and there were so many stars that, gazing upward, one couldn't help wondering how so many whimsical, wicked people could live under such a sky. This, too, is a question that would only occur to the young, to the very young. But may God make you wonder like that as often as possible." Bye-bye.